welcome to You Make Sense. This podcast is a manual to understanding your human experience so that you can navigate the world with freedom, ease, empowerment, and create the life that you desire. Remember, you make sense, all parts, always. In this episode, we're going to talk about how we can begin getting our needs met in our relationships and in our life. And what I want to first name is that having needs is an inherent and biological experience that all human beings have, and not just human beings, or even all mammals. Every living thing on this planet has needs. The fern growing in the forest has needs. The ocean has needs. The grass has needs. Your child has needs. And so do you. But for some of us, we're going to notice that we have this insatiable desire to have our needs met, meaning it's never quite enough. No matter how much someone does, we need more, we need more, we need more, and we never seem content or fulfilled in it. Now, others of us have an experience where we don't even know what a need is. We don't know how to connect to them, and we certainly don't know how to ask for them to be met. But what I want everybody listening to know is that we all have this, as I said, inherent and biological rhythm inside of us for not only getting our needs met, but meeting others' needs. We have a desire and a necessity, actually, to be doing both. And in childhood development, if we have the conditions necessary to facilitate this innate process to happen, then we're going to be able to listen to these natural rhythms of getting our needs met, feeling nourished and filled up by that. Just like if I ate a meal and I'm actually content in the experience. And then from that place of contentment and fulfillment, I'm also meeting others' needs. And then once that food that I just ate is metabolized, then I have another need. And this natural ebb and flow begins to occur. And that means that I find myself really content and fulfilled in my life and in my relational experiences. And if you're saying, oh my gosh, that's not something that I experience or that's something that I want more of, keep listening to this episode because I'm going to walk you through a process on how we come back into that. Something that I want to just briefly name is that in terms of relationships, we are meant to need and rely on others. Coming into safe relationship means we are attaching. And the experience of attachment is one in which I'm now relying on you to provide things for me in this relational container. You become the person that I go to for connection, for safety, for love, for attunement. And in that deep bonding, you're the person I'm going to for that. So whether that's a romantic partnership or a friendship. And the deeper the bond becomes, the deeper the attachment becomes. So I just want to name that because I think we're in a time where people are talking a lot about this experience of independence and what does it look like to be individuated, and we can go to the other extreme. But the truth of the matter is we are meant to need others. We are meant to lean on others, and we are meant to expose ourselves to them in a way, by the way, that could lend us to be hurt. And when we attach, that is the vulnerability that we're opening up to. So before we get into the experience of how we can have full contact with our needs and be in this ebb and flow, I want to talk about where a lot of us currently find ourselves in terms of getting our needs met. And the first thing that we have to address is codependency. So codependency is the result of individuation being inhibited in development. So this is a process that happens early on in our development. When we come into the world, we don't have the ability to self-regulate our nervous systems, which means we're entirely dependent on the caregivers around us to regulate our nervous systems. Because of that, I am really seeing myself as an extension of my mother. I am deeply, deeply connected to her. And I also need that physical and emotional contact constantly because my nervous system doesn't know how to regulate yet. So I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, as a mother, I'm the only one. No, of course, we have others, right? The father, the other mother, the other parent. And we also have our community around us, hopefully, of other people who are connecting with the child too. So as the baby begins to develop, the desire for individuation comes online in their internal experience. And that's because their full vagus nerve and autonomic nervous system is now online, and they now are developing the ability to self-regulate. This is really important to do because as we grow up, we're going to have to navigate the world not only in connection, but also on our own and see that I am safe with me. Now, if I have a caregiver or caregivers, who see me as separate from them, which they are supposed to do, meaning I am not actually an extension of them. I am my own individual, my own person, and in my own beautiful uniqueness that is not them. That's the way that our caregivers are supposed to see us and experience us. And if they have regulation in their own nervous system and a secure attachment in their system, then as we individuate, they can tolerate that. They don't see our need for spaciousness or separation as abandonment for them. But if I have a caregiver who was abandoned in their own childhood, or they weren't able to deeply bond with anyone else and now they have us, their system's going to see our individuation as dangerous for them. And so they're going to do things to inhibit that. Not because they don't love us, but because their younger parts are showing up and they are deeply, deeply afraid. And so that can look, subtle, meaning there might not be a lot of words attached to that, or there might be verbal messaging that we get that our individuation hurts them, it makes them sad, they feel like we don't care about them, or we might just feel their nervous system being panicked as we individuate. So in that experience, what's occurring is we essentially become their emotional caregiver. So now I become focused on ensuring that they're okay because my individuation is hurting them. So my system learns, well, if I do this thing, I'm going to harm or hurt my caregiver, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to inhibit this individuation from happening. Other times we might have caregivers who, because they are in their younger parts, we become their caregiver. So essentially we become what's called parentified. So I have a role of caretaking you. When I caretake you, I receive love, I am told I am good, and I maintain safety and connection. Now, for others of us in this dynamic, we may have been made to be the helpless one. So in all of those scenarios, I'm given this role of being the helper. And my job is to not be focused on my own experience, to be overly focused on your experience and caretaking and tending you. Now, for others of us, we may have had an experience where our caregivers inhibited or tried to stop that individuation by keeping us helpless. So by giving us the verbal or nonverbal message that we aren't going to be okay on our own, that we don't have the capacity to do things for ourselves, that we're not going to be able to survive if we don't have this other person. And also that if we maintain our helplessness, then we're going to get attention and affection. And then we take on this role in our lives. So in any codependent dynamic, we have one person playing the role of the helper, and we have one person playing the role of the helpless one. In order for this dynamic to function, we need one of both. And when that occurs, we are fusing together, and we are not individuated, meaning I am me and you are you, and we're coming together in connection. But there is no I, and there is only we. Specifically, if I am the helper, I am losing identity, and I am overly focused on the other. If you are in the role of the helpless one, I am not actually embodied in my true self. In that experience, I am embodied in a younger part of me. So in order for this dynamic to function, we both have to play those roles. And when we do, we get a semblance or sense of safety, connection, and belonging inside of that container. So I want to give some examples of what it's like to have these different roles inside of a codependent experience. So if you are the rescuer or the helper, you're going to have this feeling and this pretty overwhelming experience that if I was to set a boundary, I would hurt someone. So if I was actually to say, I can't help you right now, I'm going to hurt them and they won't be okay. So I disregard my own needs and truth in the service of ensuring that they're okay, because the fear is if I don't do that, if I set a boundary, if I am not overly focused on you, you may leave. So if you're the rescuer, we actually need the other person to maintain helplessness, because it is their helplessness that gives us a sense of control, meaning they're not going to be okay without me. That gives me a role in their life that feels like is irreplaceable. So that gives the part of me that might be really afraid to be abandoned it's not a real rooted sense of safety, but it's a semblance of safety that makes the relational container feel safe for me. So if this is us, we're going to find ourselves in relationships where we are overly focused on the other person. We are disconnected from our own needs. We are chronically and even in a hypervigilant way looking for how their needs may need to be met even in the future. And we're also going to really struggle if that person has a life outside of us, because that's going to be threatening to our role. So them having, wonderful friendships and having, a career that they really love, that's going to be threatening to us, because the fear is, what if someone else takes my role of the rescuer? Because I inherently do not feel like me as myself will be enough for them to stay. So now if I'm in the role of the helpless one, I received the message early on that I received love and attention when I was in a place of helplessness and needed you. So it's really important that I stay in that role, because the fear is, if I actually become independent, you might go away, or you might be angry at me, or I might be harmed in a particular way. So I have to maintain that helplessness inside of the container. And we'll also have this experience that if I am not centered, I'm going to be invisible. So it's a very black and white experience where someone else having needs threatens my ability to be deeply seen and known and to get my needs met. So as they, desire for me to meet their needs or to take up space, it can become really activating for me. So we can spend a lot of time in these dynamics. For the majority of my life, this is how I oriented towards relationship as the helper. For me, there was a lot of benefit to that, because it was overwhelming for my system to be seen, because I was neglected in my childhood. So even though we might have a deep desire for that, if it's not something that our system is acquainted with, it will feel really overwhelming. So my comfort zone was being invisible and then caretaking and rescuing. So that actually kept anybody from ever seeing and knowing me, because vulnerability felt like too much. So I just want to name, there's a lot of secondary gain that we get inside of these relational dynamics when that's all that our nervous system currently has capacity for. So if, as I'm saying this, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is what my marriage looks like, or this is what my current relationship looks like, or all my past relationships look like, I want you to have some kindness towards yourself. There's a reason for it. And the beautiful thing is that by embodying this work, it is actually possible to begin shifting that. That's why this podcast exists, to give you the tools necessary to make those changes. So I want to go into another dynamic that so many of us find ourselves in relationally, which is being hyper independent. I also know this role quite well. And when you are the helper, by the way, in a codependent dynamic, you can also be in this hyper independent role. So hyperindependence is the result of having early childhood experiences where interdependence was either inhibited or dangerous. So interdependence develops when we have consistent experiences in our early childhood where our caregivers created safety for us, they were able to attune with us, and they were able to help us to regulate our nervous systems. So when that happens again and again, I am able to see that I am me, you are you, and we come together in this relationship and need one another and bond and attach and connect. So if those things were inhibited, I did not have safety, attunement, and consistent regulation as a child, I'm really in a lot of trouble because I need safety to survive, and I also need someone to help me to regulate my nervous system. But what we can brilliantly do is adapt and disconnect from our needs entirely, disconnect from our desires, and not only that, disconnect from our bodies as a whole. So I don't have to feel the perpetual pain of a stress response. I can go into what's called my dorsal vagal complex and numb, shut down, disconnect. And herein lies how hyper-independence develops. Our society really, in many ways, celebrates hyper-independence. Here's a couple examples of what that can look like. We may have friends that say to us something like, I can always rely on you. You're always available. When something hard happens, you're the one that they call. Also, you're a person that doesn't really bring up things that aren't working in the relationship. So I don't really talk about that. And I don't require anything of you or very little inside of the relationship. Also in the workplace, right? A lot of companies want to hire people who are hyper independent. You're not asking for help. You're not complaining. You will always do more. Even if it's beyond what feels comfortable for you, you'll keep going. That tends to be the way that hyper-independent people operate. And by people, I know this really well myself. I did this for the majority of my life. This is how I operated in the world. If this is you, it's going to be really challenging for you to ask for help. In my relationships, that was a real struggle for me. I didn't even really know how to have a need. Like I would go to dinner with a friend and I would just want to talk about them the whole time because that was my comfort zone, being invisible and providing support to another person. That's where I found myself to be valuable, or that's the only value that I thought I had. And I wasn't, by the way, thinking about doing this. It just happened. This was the reflex because that was the dynamic that my system learned a long time ago. I remember at one point in my own therapeutic work, I was talking about this and I said, it just seems exhausting when someone says, how are you? To then like go into how I'm doing because I'm just recapitulating how I'm doing. I'm just telling them how I am. What's that going to do besides waste energy? Because I didn't even understand what it was like to have reciprocity. I had no idea what it was like for somebody to actually show up and give me something that was different from what I was giving myself. To deeply see me and attune with me and validate me in ways that I couldn't for myself. So I just want to name, if that's you, just know that this makes so much sense. We'll also find ourselves really disconnected from our needs, like just truly not having a sense of what I want, what feels too much for me, or what feels like not enough. I really don't know what that is because remember, our truth lives inside of our bodies. And if we've become hyper independent, it's because usually we had to leave our bodies at some point in our lives. We'll also notice that it might be really difficult for us to communicate. So I might make contact with first usually a complaint. So this isn't working for me. And then I might even make contact with the need underneath that. So this doesn't work. And what I really need is for you to ask me how I'm doing. But when it comes to communicating that can feel really inhibited or impossible. So I think about doing the thing, but I just avoid it. I can't even go there. I can't talk about the problem that's happening. And that's because historically speaking, confrontation wasn't safe, vulnerability wasn't safe, and that level of connecting wasn't safe for me. So when we're in these dynamics of not being able to relate in a way that is coming from our authentic selves, it means that we're not deeply connected to those needs, nor are those needs being met. So the result of that is we become malnourished in our relationships and we start to experience things like resentment. Resentment is like a slow poison in a relationship. First it feels like, oh, maybe that's not that big of a deal, but it builds and builds and builds over time. For many of us, what happens is we're communicating complaints instead of our unmet need. When we communicate a complaint, it's like we're armored. And for those of us that either didn't get our needs met or vulnerability wasn't safe, this is going to be the reflex. The issue with that is, imagine if someone was standing in front of you with armor and a sword. Does that make you want to soften and come towards them? Or does it make you want to put armor on too? It's going to make you want to put armor on too. Your nervous system is going to reflexively do that. So if I communicate complaints from this self-protective place, like you never do this, or you always do this, or you don't care about me, those are all complaints, right? When I do that, my partner is not going to soften. They're going to become armored. And then they are probably going to communicate a complaint back to me. And this experience of communicating complaints over and over again erodes the relationship and also keeps us from ever getting those unmet needs met. The only way for that to happen is to brave taking off the armor. How scary is that, right? But you think about this like having this armor on that is protecting these vulnerable parts of you that experienced perhaps excruciating things in the past. And your protective parts are saying, I don't ever want to feel that kind of rejection again, ever, ever, ever. It was so overwhelming for me. And for those younger parts, it can feel like that might feel like annihilation to imagine experiencing that again. And that's why it is so brave to actually do this work, because it's going to feel incredibly scary at first and counterintuitive. Because what we have to do is we have to begin taking off that armor and showing the other person in front of us this tender, vulnerable part, this soft skin that could be wounded. The work is that we do that gently and slowly. We don't take all the armor off at once. And we only do this, by the way, with people that are safe, that have earned our trust. So when we're able to do that gently and slowly, and we expose these vulnerable parts and the needs that we have and they have with a safe, loving person, their reflex is not going to be to armor. Their reflex is going to be to come towards us, to help protect us and meet our needs. A caveat to this is just to also say it's our job to be the primary caretaker to those young parts. So those young parts that experience those woundings, they don't just need our partner to meet our needs. They need us as the primary parent to do that too. Otherwise, if our partner tries to do it, it'll never quite seem like enough. So to go back to the other symptoms that can happen when we are chronically not getting our needs met, what occurs is we are consistently not being seen and known because we're armored, right? So if I am armored, no one can actually know the depths of my experience, the depths of my vulnerability. And when that occurs, we'll notice that we begin to feel more and more alone inside of a relationship. I remember for a really long time, actually, inside of the marriage that I was in, that I was very armored and I was in a codependent dynamic. And because of that, I felt so deeply unseen and unknown. And I know a lot of you know this experience where you're in a relationship and you feel so alone sitting next to another person. I remember saying this in my own therapy, like, it feels more lonely to be with someone and feel this than if I was just to be by myself feeling alone. And a lot of us know what that's like because I'm in the presence of another human and all that I desire is for another human to know me. And yet there's this giant invisible wall between us that is keeping me from that experience. And so I just want to name, if you're finding yourself in any of the dynamics that I just named and experiencing any of the symptoms of those dynamics, like just feeling straight out exhausted from it, because by the way, it is really exhausting to be in these dynamics, that it can change, and it's our healing that brings us to it. So let's talk about this experience that we're all desiring inside of a relationship, which is called interdependence. Interdependence is the experience of feeling fully embodied in who I am. So I am a whole person, meaning I have adult me present. I have addressed and do address my younger parts. I have desires and needs outside of this partner that are being addressed in other areas. I am feeling fulfilled in my purpose, in community. I have hobbies of my own. And I know that if this relationship ended, I would survive it. Now, it might be incredibly heartbreaking. It might feel like it shatters my heart into a million pieces, and I am just overwhelmed with grief of loss of something that I don't want to end or something that was beautiful for me. And that can feel like true heartbreak, but I know I'm not going to die. I know I'm going to be okay. From that place, I can actually choose love from a place of embodiment and choice rather than from a place of survival. So that means that my partner is also individuated and interdependent themselves. They have a full life outside of me. They're being fulfilled by other things. And we are two people that come together as whole beings, not complete beings, because we are, of course, never done in this process of our own becoming. But I know and they know that we are okay and will be okay with ourselves. And then we come together and we say, and there is something really beautiful about deepening this connection with one another, and we start to attach. When we attach, we are actually needing the other person. I am relying on you. So not only that, but I am exposing parts of myself that I do not expose to anyone else. My most vulnerable parts, the parts that feel the most scared, the parts that feel the most inadequate. And now I am relying on you to know those parts and meet the needs of them and to support them. And also, by the way, in a way that I can't do for myself. So I can, of course, self-attune and self-regulate, but having another person attune with me and having another person meet my needs is very different. So I am relying on you to do that. And that's what interdependence is. I really want to be clear on this because a lot of times people think a healthy relationship is that I don't really need you. No, we're supposed to need others. That's the principle of attachment and bonding. But remember, I am me, you are you. We are separate beings. We also, by the way, in interdependence, allow ourselves to be separate beings. I am not trying to make you me. I am not trying to control you. I see who you are. I accept who you are. I honor who you are. And I ask you to do the same for me. And I also am willing and available and desiring to meet the needs that you have and vice versa. When this occurs, life becomes so incredibly beautiful. This is the foundation for what allows us, this safe base is what allows us then to go take risks in life. It allows us to step towards things that scare us because I have this safe base and this foundation that I am coming back to. A lot of times people talk, and Esther Perel says this a lot, but and these aren't her exact words, but this is the essence, that the quality of our relationships creates the quality of our lives. And in so many ways, that's really true. So what's going on in our relationship deeply affects our own nervous system. And our nervous system, what we know, creates our entire experience. So if I am having a safe relational experience, I am being nourished and nurtured by the relationship, my nervous system is going to thrive. And theirs is too. And from that place, I am able to have not only the relationship of my dreams, but the life that I desire as well. So let's talk about how we begin making contact with what our needs actually are and how we get them met. And when we do this, it also changes and transforms our relational dynamics. So the first thing that we need to do is to become the primary parent to our younger parts. We've touched on parts work in this episode, but please go listen to the other episodes that are specific to parts work. I go deeply into how to do that, the process. And if you're wanting even more support, you can check out one of my programs where we go deeply into the process of reparenting. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can get on the wait list for some of those or join them if you'd like. So what does this mean? The beautiful thing about healing is we actually have the capacity to change the past. And I don't mean, of course, that we can literally make what happened, not have happened. But what we can do is we can travel back to those experiences and give those younger versions of ourselves the things that they never got in the here and now with us. It's literally like time travel. When you're triggered or activated, by the way, you have travel time. You're not in the present moment. You're in the past, or you're in an anticipated dangerous future. So if we can travel back in a negative way, that means we can travel back in a positive way too. So my job is to first anchor in working the muscle of being my adult self. It's like you're becoming the warrior for your younger parts. You're training. So what I want to do is regulate my nervous system and again get on board what it is like to feel and experience adult me. All you have to do is think about a moment in your life where you felt capable and able. Maybe in parenting your kids, being with your animal or pet, in your career, where you feel like you've got it. Things are going to be okay. Feel that part of you in your body and bring that alive fully, meaning I'm fully marinating it, feeling the sensations and feelings involved. From that place, what I want to do is think about my relationship for a moment. And I want you to ask yourself, when do I not feel this way? You might be saying, oh my gosh, I don't think I ever feel this way. Or when this happens, I feel a very different way. So let's say that when you get in an argument with your partner, you feel scared, small, insignificant, unimportant, undesirable, or whatever. I want you to get curious about who is that part. So you might ask yourself, when do I first remember experiencing this? That'll clue you into how old that part is. Or you could just ask yourself, how old is that part? It's very important we differentiate from these younger parts of us because the needs that adult you have inside of this relationship are going to be different than the needs of that younger part. And we have to delineate between the two. Otherwise, what's going to occur is that younger part is going to show up in the relationship and they're going to look for our partner to be the perfect parent that our parents were not. and they will have an insatiable desire for it. There is no amount of meeting those young parts' needs that's going to be enough when it comes from an outside source. It will become enough if I am the primary parent to those younger parts. So I want you to connect to, what do those parts actually need? They need someone to be interested in them. They need someone who feels really safe. They need someone whom does different activities with them or spends quality time with them. So connect to who that part is and what they need. And then our job as our adult selves is to begin meeting that need for them as the parent, like literally just as you would for a child. So let's say, here's an example. This is our last day of filming for 3 days. That's a lot of episodes we filmed in the last 3 days. And let's say I have a younger part, which I definitely did throughout my life, that wasn't ever really celebrated. So what's really important for me is that I spend some time, could be just a couple minutes in my car, and connect to that part and let them know how proud I am of them for all that they've done and how they're showing up and that it is a really big deal, and take my time with that. The more that I do that, the less that part is going to look for my partner to fill in 100% of that need. Now, I might still need from my adult self, my partner, to say, I'm so happy that you got all this done and I'm so proud of you and let's do something to celebrate or have a nice dinner or I'm going to take care of you, whatever. That might be my adult self's need, but that's very different from the need of the young part. And the beautiful thing is, the more we do this work, I've been doing this work for a long time, that it becomes a really quick thing. I could sit in my car for just a second and just take the hand of that younger part and let them know how proud I am of them and really feel that in my body. That's integration. So that means the younger part has become a part of me. They're not so fragmented off anymore. So I just wanted to walk you through a process and what that looks like to meet the need of the young part. And then we ask our partner to show up for us in the way that adult us needs. So then our job is to really connect into our adult self and ask myself, like just around this simple example I gave you, what do I need from my partner in order for me to feel seen or celebrated around this? So it might be that, I really need my partner when I get on the phone to ask me, how did today go? And to be really interested in it. That is an actual need that I have. And when he's able to do that for me, from my adult self, him being curious and asking is enough, because the young part is not showing up. I might also need that when I get home, we have a relaxing night. I'm not going out and to a dinner with 15 people. That kind of would be a lot for me after talking all day. And that he can meet that need and that's okay. And when that happens, I feel really met and attuned with. And so we want to connect into, what is it that I am actually needing as adult me? Really important. And what you're going to find is it might have a flavoring of what the young part needs, but it is definitely different when it comes from adult us. And it's not an experience where I'm looking for them to be my parent. I'm looking for them to be my partner. So if you're saying, I don't actually know what my needs are, a wonderful way to make contact with your needs is to get curious about your complaints. Every complaint we have is an indicator or a clue of an unmet need. So let's say my partner wasn't meeting my needs and I was complaining like, you never support me, right? You never ask me how I'm doing. So what is the need there? Well, the need might be, hey, when I call you after finishing up a day of shooting, I really need you to right away or as soon as possible, just ask me, how was the day? And to be really present when you're asking and curious about it and to feel that experience in your body. Can you do that for me? So that's the need, right? I'm connecting to what it is that's underneath the complaint. So if we stay in the complaints because it feels too scary to expose ourselves vulnerably, we're going to erode the relationship, and vice versa, because I'm armored. The only way that we can actually get our needs met is to bravely and slowly take that armor off and ask for the thing that we're desiring. And by the way, when we do that, we get to heal the past in the present, because we're showing our parts, hey, relationships can be different. People can not only show up, but they can want to show up. And there's so much beautiful healing that happens in that. The next thing is we want to communicate in a way that's tolerable for us. So it might feel too overwhelming to at first even, verbally communicate that out loud. And I want to let my partner know that, like, you know what? I have been so armored. It feels so scary to ask for needs to be met that it feels hard to say it out loud. So is it okay if I start by texting you needs? Can I write it to you? Because that feels safer. So I'm giving them context about why I'm doing this, right? That it feels scary. And then I'm asking them to be on board with me in doing it this way. So I just want you to think about what is a way that feels tolerable to communicate your need. Another important thing when it comes to communicating our needs is ensuring that we're finding a time where both of us are actually available to give and receive the need. A lot of times what we can do is like, I mustered up the courage to communicate this need, and then I bust into my partner's office and I'm like, hey, I need to tell you something. And they're in the middle of something else, they're not able to be present to me in this moment. And I'm setting myself up for not getting that need met in the moment or not being heard. And then what usually happens is I armor back up. So it can be really great, for partners to even a couple times a week to say, here's a time where we sit down just for a couple minutes. And maybe we start with saying a way that we're grateful that you are meeting the needs that I have, or a need that you met that really felt really wonderful when you did it. So we thank them and we take turns doing that. And when we might say, is there another need that I could meet for you? And we've taken the time to connect to what another need might be, and then we communicate it together. Or at the very least, what we want to do is when we're communicating a need, ask our partner, are you available right now? And if they are not currently available, it's okay and important that they say they're not, but they need to just let us know when might be a good time. That's really important. Then we come back into connection to communicate. And then lastly, it's important that we marinate in the met need, meaning allow ourselves to really feel the goodness of it. When we have parts that orient towards things never being enough, by the way, we can do this towards ourselves. Like, what I'm doing is never enough. Usually that means we're going to orient towards our partner in the same way, like it's never enough. So our work is to really feel into the good things that they're doing for us, the way that they're meeting our needs, how much they're trying. The more that we do that, the more we're orienting our systems to focus on what's actually working and focus on the positive. And lastly, people say this to me a lot. If I have to ask for it, it means I don't want to do it and it doesn't count. If you find that happening, that's a clue that you've got a younger part that is looking for your partner to be the perfect parent or to read your mind. They cannot. And here's the truth. If you ask for a need to be met, and then your partner fully hears you and listens, and then the next day or 5 days later, they have thought about it and they remember, and then they do the thing that you asked, that took a lot of effort and focus on you in order to make that happen. So that is not obligatory, and that is not them not caring. That is them caring so much that they listened to you, they took in what you were saying, and then they met that need. So I really want you to see if you can orient to that from this place. When we are getting our needs met, we are fully nourished in our relationships, and that's how they thrive. Not sure where to start with somatic healing? My free quiz, What's Keeping You Stuck, will equip you with a personalized guide and tangible trauma-informed tools to help you regulate your nervous system. Check out the link in the show notes to get started. Okay, we're going to get to the Q&A portion of this episode. We have Rachel here with us today. If you're new to this podcast, I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Rachel, I think of her like my human connection specialist, our human connection specialist. She's a trained social worker. She has embodied this work in her own life. She's an expert in it, and she runs every single community that we have inside of all of our programs. So if you ever join one of them, she will be holding you throughout the entire experience. If you send us a DM, an email, she's the one that's going to be getting back to you. She runs a lot of the calls inside of our program. So I am just so lucky to have her on my team and as a dear friend of mine. And we're really lucky to have her here on this podcast. So Rachel, hi. It's so good to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be here. I've got 4 questions today. Do you want to get going?
I'm very excited to get to all of them.
Hi, Sarah. I recently discovered you. It's been a godsend. My guy and I are long distance for the moment. I visit most weekends. Recently, due to his work commitments, that hasn't been possible. I'm aware of my anxious attachment and have made huge progress in the past 3 years. Earlier this year, I completed a 30-day somatic course, and for 3 months, I had no anxiety. However, it has resurfaced with a vengeance. When I really observe it, I'm not even sure what I'm afraid of. Objectively, I know we're fine. But when I don't have the connection via phone and text as much as I prefer, my body panics. I'm trying to honour myself and him. I want my body to feel grounded and secure without needing connection every day. And I feel it's my responsibility to look after and manage my internal state, especially when the thoughts aren't truthful.
Well, first, I just want to say what an incredible example of what's possible when we embody this work. This person is saying they did this 3-month program and they felt no anxiety. And so I want to, for anyone listening whom feels like, I don't know, what is this? Does it even work? We have a lot of people who, when they write questions and say, yeah, I did one of your programs or I did a program and this is what changed for me. So it is possible to reshape our nervous systems. And that's what this person experienced, their nervous system reshaping. And all that's happening right now is you're having a contraction. So healing is the process of expand, contract, expand, contract. We expand into greater levels of regulation, which means more exposure, vulnerability, connectivity, all of that. And then we have a contraction where our nervous system says, wait a minute, I'm not sure this is actually safe. And we experience that as dysregulation. So just know that the healing process is a swirly line. It is not just the straight trajectory up. And that doesn't mean you've gone backwards. This is forward. And you're addressing a deeper level of the affect of that part. And when I say affect, what I'm talking about is the embodied experience or sensations of that young part that was wounded in terms of early attachment. And when we have an anxious attachment, my system is going to say, I am not safe alone. I need another person to be safe. What I love in hearing what this person said is that I know that I need to be the answer for this part. That wasn't their exact words, but that was the essence. Meaning, my partner cannot rescue this version of me that feels like they're not going to be okay without the connection. And that is absolutely true. We talked about that in this episode. It will never be enough. If you notice that in the relationship, it's never quite enough. Whatever they're doing, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. That is a clue that there's a young part that is looking for them to be the perfect parent that they can never be. Only you can be that for that younger part of you. So the work is we got to get to know who that part is. How old are they? Probably quite young. What are they afraid of? And what do they need from you? And that's becoming the steady tree that I talk about a lot, the constant force that part never got, where they can always come to you. And at first, by the way, when we're doing attachment work, when we have an anxious attachment, that younger part's going to come to us a lot and say, I'm scared. Is everything going to be okay? I'm all alone. I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. And then they calm down because we regulate them and we remind them, I promise it will. I'm right here. I'm right here. And then they calm down. And then a few hours later, they're like, wait a minute, are you sure it's going to be okay? We experience that as more anxiety. And then we calm them down and say, yes. I use this metaphor a lot of imagining if I had a foster child that had my childhood, not me, a different child. And if I had a kid who had an anxious attachment because their caregiver was on and off or abandoned them, I wouldn't get frustrated with that kid if they needed me to do that for them, right? They needed that reassurance. I wouldn't be like, well, I don't know, you need to grow up. I would say, yeah, I'm right here. I'm actually so glad that you came to me. Let me give you a hug. And then the kid would get calm and they'd go off in the backyard and then they'd run inside and say, oh my gosh, I thought you might have left the house. And I wouldn't say, you're crazy for thinking that I would just leave the house. I would say, oh, I understand that was scary. Hey, why don't you put your hand on my chest and I'm going to put my hand on your chest and let's just feel each other's hearts for a second and just breathe. That's it. See, I'm not scared of they're scared. I say that a lot. Very important. I'm not afraid of what they're afraid of. And the more that I did that, I wasn't frustrated with them. I didn't try to change them. I just was that steady force that said, you can come to me. I'm right here. I'm right here. Eventually what would happen is that kid would go a whole day and they're just bopping around doing stuff. And I might say, hey, can I have a hug? And they're like, yeah, I don't really feel like giving you a hug today, which is them setting a boundary. And honestly, what an incredible thing, right? They got to the place where they saw they are now safe with themselves. And so I gave that really practical example because people can get so confused about like, what do I do? How do I heal this? Exactly how I just said. That's what we do with our parts. And the more I do that, the more my part feels safe instead of that younger part looking to my partner to be the one. You could be with your partner, by the way, and and I experienced this for years and years and years and years. And I used to think, well, if I get married to this person, then for sure that part will feel safe. No, they won't. That's not going to fix it either. You could live together, you could marry them, you could glue yourself to their body, and it will not be enough. So just know there is a way out, and this is the work that we need to do. The more that we do it, the more that things change. And then the other thing I just want to say is we also want to ask our partner for help. So it might be letting your partner know, hey, when I'm feeling scared, can you just remind me of this particular thing? Remind me you're not going anywhere, or remind me that you love me, or remind me that you're a phone call away, or whatever it is that might be helpful. Now, the most important thing is when they say it, pause and absorb it. When we have an anxious attachment, we're not present. So we're in survival. So we're not absorbing what the other person is saying. So if your partner says, I choose you today, I choose you. I choose you more than anybody else in this whole big wide world. What a nice thing to say, right? I'm going to ask my partner to tell me that tonight. So then when they say that, feel it. So pause and take it in. What does that feel like in my body? So the more that we do that, the more that they're supporting us as we are supporting our parts. And this is the way out of that experience. And if you're like Rachel and I, who historically had disorganized attachment, there's a part of you that's like that, and there's a part of you that pushes people away. So this will apply to you too.
That's just so nice because you're taking responsibility for your parts, and then you're inviting your partner to nurture and support that. And I know I've heard you talk about being the primary parent, and then they're allowed to be the secondary parent. And yeah, that just sounds so nurturing. And what a nice way to come together through your dysregulation and then heal together. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And I just want to name, when you've shared so candidly, and thank you for doing it, Rachel, about your partner and the time that together you both took to come into closeness. And he moved in, when was it, last year, this year?
Like 6 months ago.
Yeah. After how long?
8.5 years, 8 years. Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted you to share that is because we don't want to have the expectation that everything is supposed to be resolved right away. Or if it's true love and it's right for you, it should just sweep you off your feet. And in 3 months, you're living together and everything's perfectly fine. And it's not scary. No, we want to show the parts, hey, this is safe. This is safe. This is safe. And the more they see that, and the more we are also compassionate to our partner's parts, the more we can come into closeness.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Oh, well, the next question is also about parts. How do I support the young part of me that is experiencing infatuation? And how do I support the young part of me that feels rejected and angry when my bids for connection are not reciprocated, like no acknowledgement or reply from my sister to some of my texts, or asking a friend to meet up to spend time together, but they don't seem to be too interested and have other priorities?
Okay, so let's start with the second part of this question. When we have parts that weren't chosen, those parts are hypersensitive to anything that is going to remind them of the past. I know people that, this isn't something that comes up for me, but I know people whom if they post something and enough people don't like it, or people that they want to like it don't like it, it's very triggering for younger parts of them. Like, I don't matter. No one cares what I think. This isn't going to work out. And it touches on a deep, deep wounding. So these vulnerable parts are going to be hypervigilant. They look out and they're like, how is this going to be like the past? How is this going to be like the past? And then what they do is, if they don't have us protecting them, I think of them as having like a newborn baby's skin. It's really, 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 really delicate. And that's hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity gets such a bad rap. What's really going on here is we have a very, very, very vulnerable part who experience some deep, deep woundings. And they're saying, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to in the world and I'm going to have this bid for connection, like asking you to like meet up with me. And then my friend doesn't respond for 2 days. And so what those parts do, because they're exposed and because they're a young part, they're not protected by us, and they're going to make meaning of it that it has to do with them. They're going to internalize. So instead of what's actually going on is my friend has the flu. They're literally staring at a wall, convulsing, right? Maybe I don't know that, and that's what's going on. But what the meaning I make is I don't matter. I'm not important. And then the story that follows is they saw this text and they just didn't even want to write me back. And nobody puts me first. And I'm never going to get the things that I want. Then with your partner, you're telling them about something, like you really want them to be engaged in. And they are feeling stressed about something in their work, right? And I'm telling them this thing, the vulnerable part is, and that vulnerable part is really wanting you to give me all of your attention. But they're not. Because it's not a moment in time where they have their adult self present. So instead of making meaning that, they're struggling and stressed right now, they don't have the capacity, I make meaning that they don't care about me. I'm not important to them. I don't matter to them. And then those young parts get deeply wounded. So it's very, very important that we know the difference between what it feels like for that young version of me to be in my body versus adult me. We talk about this in a lot of episodes, but aren't those parts convincing that it's about today?
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they feel something, the affect, and then they look outside via our eyes or our body, and they say, what's in front of me that caused this? That's what they do. So if I'm feeling frustration and then I'm in my car and there is this like elderly couple driving in front of me and they're driving slower than I like because they're retired, they have nowhere to be. But I am feeling frustration. Guess whose fault it is? Theirs. And all of a sudden I'm like, get out of the way. I mean, I promise you I don't do this, but this does happen, right? Get out of the way. What's wrong with you? You're so inconsiderate. I make it about them. And that's what we all do. So it's really important to really get to know these parts, comfort them, give them what they need. And then from adult me, anchoring in adult me, what's actually true? What's actually true? And Rach, can you remind me what the first part of this question was?
How do I support the young part of me that is experiencing infatuation?
Mm-hmm. So infatuation, a lot of us get that confused with love. Have you ever done that?
Yes. So much.
Yeah. Tell me what that's like. In the past when you did that, what was that experience like? Just so people can really hear it and see if it's something that they've experienced before themselves.
Just so intense, literally feel like I was 14 and I was like in my mid 30s and just so intense. And if I sent a text and then didn't get a reply back in the time that I thought, then I would be panicking. What should I say? Did I say the wrong thing? Yeah, nightmare.
Yeah, it's intense. That's a great way to describe it. And it feels like you're a teenager. A lot of the time, the part of us that experiences infatuation is a teenage part. And this part is willing to put everything else in our lives aside for this incredible person in front of us. This George Clooney was my first crush as a kid. This person in front of us is just like the most amazing person on the planet. By the way, he's a person, right? There is no perfect person. He's got lots of flaws. I don't know him personally, but obviously he does because we all do. But that teenage part, infatuation is a way for that young part to survival response to imagine a rescuer. So there is someone who's going to be able to rescue me from this experience. If I make someone the most special, and then the most special person likes me, I must be special. Isn't that really smart of the part? Like if I feel like I'm not special, but then I can call in what I consider the most special person, the shiny penny, whatever, and they like me, that means that I am then inherently special, and then I can bypass the healing work that I need to do, and I just found my way out of this thing. And so that's what it's a part of what infatuation is about. So if you're finding yourself putting someone on a pedestal, you think that they're just fully the bee's knees. The bee's knees. That's so funny. Who says that? I do. They're just amazing, and there's nothing about them that you don't like. A lot of times people think that that is love. That is not love. That's infatuation. Love is discerning. When we are in love, like real, true love, I see that person fully. So without judging, I just see and experience. So I take in all the good qualities about them. And there's also things about them that might not work for me right now. There's things that I might feel annoyed by. And the goal is that we can see those as their annoying little imperfections that we have, beautiful imperfections. And there's things that I need them to work on in order for this relationship to work, and vice versa, by the way. And if I am projecting infatuation onto someone, by the way, you don't actually know them. You don't. What you're knowing is a perception of them that isn't actually real, a perception that you are projecting onto them. And in order to really know someone deeply, we have to come into our adult selves, away from that part that is trapped in that experience of infatuation. And by the way, with infatuation, you put someone on a pedestal. As soon as you put someone on a pedestal, there's a power differential, meaning they have more power over you. They might not have asked to be put on a pedestal. I may have just done that. And all of a sudden, this relationship is no longer mutually reciprocal. So what I really want folks to know is that true, real love, it's grounded, it's anchored. It's safe. It's also exciting and fun and playful and silly and all of those wonderful things. But it is not in any way like the drug that infatuation is. And the more that we come into our adult selves and comfort those teen parts, the more that adult us can show up.
And you're right. Infatuation does feel like an addiction. It's like you can't rest. There's like a restlessness, intensity.
And we contort ourselves, right? Like and I've done this so many times where I would just become exactly what I thought that other person wanted me to be. Everything that I thought, like I got rid of all of my own needs, and I'll do whatever you want to do that makes you happy. I will, I'm not going to focus on my own career or my stuff. I'm just going to focus on you. What do you need from me? And literally try to become a perfect person for them, which means they don't really know me either. So none of us are knowing each other. The more we come into our adult selves, the more we do.
I wish I'd known that then.
Me too.
Okay. So our next question. I just broke up with my girlfriend. I love her, but reached a point where I was not enjoying my time with her and needed space outside the relationship. I'm wondering if there is a pathway back to a relationship with her that I'm happy with, and how to best discern that while we are apart.
Well, we want to do a lot of loving inquiry. And I don't know, I want a name for this person. I do not know you, and I do not know your situation, so I'm just going to throw out some options. I don't want you to think that what I'm saying is necessarily right for you. But what I will say is, for most people, we have parts showing up in our relationships that are not our adult selves. But because those parts have a strong affect or embodied experience, we just think it's adult us. And so there's a lot of people who stay in things that are not right for them because a protective part feels like they can't leave. A lot of people leave things that are right for them because the protective part can't tolerate being chosen and being loved and being in consistent connection. And so what I want you to get really clear on is, who is the part of me that left? Is it adult me or not? And the only way to know that is by anchoring an adult you. So what we want to do is find moments where you feel like your most capable, able self. Whatever that is, maybe a moment in nature, when you're exercising, when you're with friends, when you're working, and just embody that version of you. What do they feel like in your body? Really bring it to life. And from that place, I want you to ask yourself, is this the one who left? Did I leave? And if the answer is no, the version of me that left was really angry. The version of me that left was scared. The version of me that left was frenetic. And then get to know, who is that version? It's a protective part if that's the case, if it was an adult you. And then from that place of being an adult you, do some inquiry. What about this person in this relationship was life-giving for me? What worked? What was life-giving? And then I want you to ask yourself, what didn't? What needs were not being met? And by the way, your partner might not be meeting your needs, but have you asked? Have you actually asked? When we have parts that didn't get their needs met chronically, then what's going to happen is we're going to expect our partner to read our mind. And when they don't, or by the way, other people do this thing where, and I've done this, where you ask for them to meet your need and then they meet the need. And then you're like, yeah, it doesn't count because I had to ask. No, it counts more because you had to ask and they did it. So anyway, we want to do that inquiry and get really curious. And the other thing that I just want to name for all of us is we all draw in people who have some kind of flavoring of our past. The goal is a healthier flavoring, but meaning they're going to have some positive traits of your caregivers and they're going to emulate some flavor of some of the negative things of your caregivers. Always, always, always. Why? This is another way the universe works that's kind of funny, and maybe annoying, is that they hold mirrors up for us. The mirror is saying, hello, here is the thing that is yet to be resolved for you. Here is the scary thing to step towards. And guess what? We do the same for them. So I really want you to get clear on that too, because a lot of times when people are holding mirrors up for us just by their presence, we don't want to see the mirror because we don't want to look at the thing. So we just say, this must not be able to work because, this is uncomfortable or it's triggering for me. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's true. So the more that we can do this inquiry, we can have that understanding, the more we can make right choice in our lives.
Anchoring into your adult self just makes the world of difference, and it can change how you see the person so significantly. It's quite something.
Can you tell me, this feels comfortable, tell me a way, because I know you have just such an incredible loving partner, when you're an adult you, how you see him, and then when a part shows up, just over anything simple, just so people can see how this works.
Yeah, so he's really attentive and has been making loads of food for me and just really attentive and really kind and really nurturing. And when I'm in adult me, I'm really like, oh, this is so nice, and I receive it so well. And then when a part shows up and he's asking me, how many sausages does your son want? And I'm like, why are you even asking me that?
Yeah. And what's the meaning you make? This is so good so that people can see this. So let's say he's making food and he said, how many sausages does he want? And what meaning do you make when you get frustrated?
I'd go into I don't want a mundane relationship. I want it to be all passionate. Yes. I want it to be, don't ask me about sausages.
Right. Exactly. And so this is so great thanks, Rachel, for that example. And by the way, he's doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. That's a part that just showed up. That's not your true adult self. And I want everyone listening to hear the difference, right? And from us, the listeners, listening to your parts, and just like it would be for you, from my adult self, I think, wow, what a kind, loving thing. What an incredible, I know you're not married, but step-parent he is. Wow, look how he's nurturing your family. How sexy is that, right? Like from your adult self, from the Rachel that I know, adult Rachel would think like, wow, that's really sexy that a man is doing that, and how incredibly embodied he is in his masculinity, he's caretaking us, and like, wow. But to that teen part, it's like, ew, you're not George Clooney. This projection of what we think George Clooney is, right? The more that we can identify and understand these parts, the more adult us can actually show up, instead of then doing something we later regret, like being like, we look at them weird and they're like, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me like you hate me? And we're like, I don't know. And you go in the other room, and then later we're like, oh, I was kind of a jerk. That's what's going on here with our different parts, and we have to be able to identify them.
And luckily I can hear it and I can know it. Oh, hi. So then I don't say that to him. I'm not like, I can just feel it, and I'm like, oh, hi. And then I can tend to her and nurture myself and our relationship rather than sabotage it, rather than, throw a spanner in there.
And thanks for explaining that too, Rachel, because what she's just showing us is here's the path of healing and what it looks like. So at the beginning, we don't have control. You know that? But it's just like, holy shit, this person just grabbed the steering wheel. And why did I just say that really crappy thing? That's not like me at all. That's because they grabbed the steering wheel. The more that we do this work, then you identify the parts. Then I'm able to, in the moment, take the steering wheel back. And that part doesn't take over. And then I notice they're there. And then from there, I'm able to actually comfort them. So this thing happens and I resolve it all. And it's not affecting negative change in my relationship. So thanks for that, Rach.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so we have one more question.
Great.
My 4-year relationship feels like it's coming to an end. He's a really loving person, but he's not meeting my needs. Every time I think about him leaving, I have a meltdown. For some backstory, I have a narcissistic mother and absent father. How can I get through this breakup without feeling like I'm going to die? Thank you, Sarah. You're amazing.
Thank you. You're amazing too. And, no young part can leave a relationship. They'll never leave. They can't. This is why I want to name, for people in domestic violence situations, there's so much shame that they experience from people around them who are trying their best and loving them. And there's also people who are with somebody who's just not treating them well. And your friends say to you, you deserve better. What are you doing? It's a lot of internalized shame that we then have. And if you can't leave, it's because you have a young part that is monopolizing your experience. And there is no 6-year-old, 5-year-old, 2-year-old, 1-year-old, 8-year-old that could just go out into the wilderness by themselves and survive. They wouldn't survive. So for a young part, it is literally life or death to leave. That's why this person's feeling this way. And so they cannot leave. The only one that can leave is your adult self. Because your adult self knows, they know, that you are home with you, that you are safe with you. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be excruciatingly painful and that there's not grief that's going to arrive, but I'm not going to die. And so the work that must be done is greeting and comforting that young part that's crying out to you, saying, please, please, please help. Please help. Please help. And those young parts will bargain with us because they think they're going to die, right? So they're going to be like, it's not that, if we're in a domestic violence situation, it's not that bad that they hit me sometimes because most of the time they're really nice and they say they're going to get better. That's all bargaining. Or I'm in a relationship where my partner's not meeting my needs or not doing the work I need them to do. And I'm like, well, it's okay. You shouldn't look for one person to meet all your needs anyway. And so I should just maybe go get these needs met for being seen somewhere else because my partner doesn't see me at all. So I'll just have all my friends see me and I won't have my partner see me at all. And that'll be fine. That's a young part bargaining. And so the work is comfort that part. And when we do, you're able to leave. I think I talked about this in another episode, but for myself in leaving a 10-year marriage that I was in, I was unhappy for a long time. And we were we both were butting heads for a long time. And I had done a lot of healing work and changed the dynamic of the relationship. I was requiring that. And he didn't want that dynamic to change. So that's where we were butting heads. And I knew that it was time for it to end, but I couldn't leave for years because that young part was so dominating my experience. And it's only when adult me became present that I could finally go. And when that happens, you're set free and you can actually make choices in your life from a place of choice rather than survival.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah, because people think once you know that you need to leave, that you need to act on that right away. Yeah. And actually that's terrifying. So just naming that it can take years to feel comfortable. Yeah. It's really helpful.
Yeah. And by the way, it can also take a few, just for anyone that's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be stuck in this for years. Well, if you're not doing the work, yeah. But if you do the work, this can happen quite quickly. And we have people submitting questions here and we're not, I promise you, we're not like, hey, listen, if you give us a good testimonial, we'll definitely answer your question. We're not doing that. And people are saying things like, Yesterday when we were recording episodes, someone's saying, I used to have panic attacks. I haven't had one since doing your 8-week program. Yeah, that's what happens when we embody this work. So I just want to name that I cannot give someone a timeline because I don't know your entire experience and the work that you're doing each day. But I do know when you actually embody this, it's a lot faster than you think.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. Is that it for today, Rach? Do we have any other questions?
No more questions.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for sharing about your own lived experience. I know it's so helpful for so many listening, and I will see you on our next episode. Enjoying this episode and want to go even deeper into somatic healing? You can join my email community for weekly teachings, tools, and live events. Click the show notes to join.